All right. So thanks again, everyone, for being here and for joining us for the Resilient Soul series. It's been a lot of fun doing this, and we're just thrilled to have each one of you as part of these vibrant discussions that we have. Today's discussion is going to be on self empowerment. And so I am excited about that. And I'd love to hear from some of you too, whether you're an expert or you're an enthusiast, or maybe you're just someone with a powerful personal story that you'd like to share, even poetry, whatever it might be. Let me know because I'd love to feature you in one of these interviews. I also am planning some panel discussions, and I have a newsletter that goes out. So you are welcome to join us at any time. Just let me know. You can, I'll put the link down below in the comments or the description. So we're going to talk today about how to use legal services proactively to save time, stress, and money. Now, there you go. Three priorities: time, stress, and money. And I feel like absolutely that's where self empowerment comes in because people often feel like there's nothing they can do with their finances or whatever it might be. And there's always something that we can do. So we have Sheryl Scott here with us, and she has experience as a career coach. So over 15 years of experience as a career coach, and she is pretty passionate about helping others succeed. So I'm going to let her join in and tell us a little bit about herself. So
Well,
take it over.
thank you, Cindy, and thank you for having me. This is such an honor. And yeah, I'm actually on career number 3.
Mm,
Um, did I set out to have 3 careers when I
yeah.
started my employment journey? Absolutely not. And, many of us grew up being told, you go to school, get a good education, get a good job, and you do that till you retire. Well, I think most of us know that is not the case anymore. Most of us will have multiple careers, never mind jobs, but actual full on careers.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I have been a career coach for well over 15 years. I was employed as such for about 15 years and loved what I did. I mean, it was so rewarding to be able to help people discover the tools, often within themselves, to
Mm-hmm.
be able to make choices because so many people don't feel like they have that ability. And, the recession in 2008, loads of people found themselves out of work and felt stuck because they just didn't know what they didn't know. And to be able to help them was hugely rewarding. What wasn't necessarily rewarding was in my last employment role, I was working for a government agency and found myself doing way more paperwork than helping people, which is why I became a career coach. So that was super um, challenging, is the most
Yes.
positive word I can put on that. But thankfully, a friend of mine told me about an amazing service that my husband and I needed. Again, we didn't know what we didn't know. We didn't even know it existed. We needed to do our wills and powers of attorney and couldn't afford it, or at least we thought we
Mm,
couldn't. Certainly
right.
when we were 20 something, $1,000 just to get our wills written. Well, I mean, when you're in your 20s, there are better things to spend $1,000 on. And we kept putting it off because, we were 20 something. We weren't planning to die anytime soon. But the reality was it's important.
Yes, and
And
I'm
so
guilty of
when a
that
friend of
myself.
mine, absolutely, when a friend of mine told me that we could do it on a subscription basis for less than $35 a month, I thought, heck, that's a good deal. Sign us up. We're not going to use it for anything else because we're good people. We don't use lawyers. Well, the reality was we don't use lawyers because we couldn't afford lawyers, right? Think
Yeah.
about the wealthy few. They don't do anything without talking to their lawyer, they don't sign anything without their lawyer looking at it. And for the most part, if they are good people, it helps them sleep better at night. And that's what I really believe helps empower people because you can find out what you don't know. Google is great, don't get me wrong. The challenge is most of us do not have 6 hours to Google something because, like, how many answers do you get when you put in a question? And that's
Yeah.
assuming you ask the question right or even know the question to ask.
Yes, you are right about that. And, when I think about when you're younger, you don't really feel the necessity or the urgency, I guess, for a will and a power of attorney. But I found out firsthand in my family when my dad got unexpectedly sick in his 70s, he did not have a power of an attorney or a will at that time.
Mm,
And so we had to go and pay big bucks to take care of all of that. My dad was at a point where he was still able to walk. He
mm.
got sick really quick and passed away within a few weeks. So we had to get it done fast. And it was quite expensive to do it that way. And at my age, I'll be honest with you, and I don't know, those who might be listening or following along with us, I don't have a will in place. And I talked with you about that, that said, I need to learn a little bit more about that. So
Yeah.
we know that it's important because there's a lot of things that we just don't wrap our brain around.
Hmm.
But a lot can happen if you do not have your ducks in a row. And
Absolutely.
that's the scary part. That's the scary part. And you
Hmm.
talk about being able to empower people. And now that's kind of what you're doing. Can you just tell us where, we talk about the wealthy few that have access to that. What
Hmm.
do those who of us who are not wealthy need? Now, I know we need a will and probably a power of attorney.
Hmm.
I'm not sure about when you're supposed to get a power of an attorney. I don't know if you can necessarily be real proactive on that or not, but that's something that I'm
As
sure you
soon
can
as you're an
answer for
adult,
us. Oh,
anybody over the age of 18 can have a will and power of attorney. And even those that can afford it or find a way to do it, maybe they've got a lawyer in the family, which is amazing. That's awesome. But then you also have to keep it up to date because life changes, especially if you're getting it done at the
yes.
age of 18, 19, 20, right? We go on, we get married, we have kids, we get divorced, we have grandkids, we move. If you move out of a state or province, you need to update it. Absolutely. If you've got a business or you've gotten rid of a business, again, here in
Mm.
Ontario, I'm up in Ontario, Canada, and it may or may not be the same where each of your listeners are, but you know what? Here, if you've got a succession plan for your business and you don't have a will, your succession plan is useless, right? And vice versa. If you've got beneficiaries named on your life insurance and you don't have a will, well, it's helpful, but not as helpful as it could be. And if those two things also aren't aligned, it can cause a problem. But legal services, and the other reason to engage them earlier is that there's so many other ways we can use legal services. As I said, we hadn't, but once we found it's called Legal Shield or PPLSI, which stands for Prepaid Legal Services Inc. It's our boring corporate name. I just like to call it Legal Shield. And for a low monthly rate, you get to access to an entire law firm for all areas of law. So you can ask questions way faster than Googling. Plus, then it's up to date. It's correct for your state, province, even city or township, whatever, depending on the situation, right? If you are starting a business, maybe you've just got an idea, you're thinking about it. You could literally call the law firm, speak to an attorney, and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking of doing. I had a young man do this. I'm thinking of starting a landscape company. It's me and my lawnmower out of my garage. What do I need to know? What do I need to do? And how much can you help me with? Well, they walked him through how to set it up, how to register his business. They informed him he didn't need to incorporate right away. It was a good 4 years before they suggested now's the time to spend that money because that does cost extra outside the membership. They've helped him hire, unfortunately, fire. They helped him look over all the contracts he had to sign for his equipment, his lease. He now has 10 employees, a 3,000 square foot commercial space full of equipment, and he's continuing to grow, and they've helped him every step of the way. And last spring was the first time it cost him more than $48 a month, because they said now's the time to incorporate. Everything else was included. And he said, Sheryl, honestly, this has been such a big part of my success, because without it, I wouldn't have called a lawyer for all those things because I couldn't afford it. I probably would have called them about firing somebody, but not all the rest of it. I would have crossed my fingers and
Mhm.
hoped that I was doing everything right. I probably would have incorporated out of the gate and spent money I didn't need to spend, which meant I wouldn't have been able to get equipment and hire as quickly. So yeah, he considers that a huge part of his success, and they've been able to help him avoid potential pitfalls, because there were certain things he just didn't know he didn't know.
Well, and that's the thing. You don't know. Well, the average person doesn't know. And when you mention, cross your fingers and hope everything works out, that is stressful. That is nerve
Absolutely.
wracking. And I've been in business for, well, as an entrepreneur, I have an Etsy shop that we put into place in 2010. I
Hmm.
did not, and I do not, have a lawyer on retainer or whatever. And so everything I've gone through, learned, still don't know, is out there, and we think about it often. What hoping that we do things right. And I think there's a
Hmm.
lot of people that do that. But it,
Absolutely. And in a lot of areas, right? Not just
yeah.
business, but even just in life. We sign rental agreements and leases and cell phone contracts, and we buy cars and homes. And first of all, do we read the contracts? Second of all, do we understand them? And employment, as a career coach, I've seen this over and over again. People sign employment contracts because they presume they're standard, or they're told they're standard. And often there's non-competition agreements and non-disclosure agreements. And I have a friend that I went to school with, we won't say how long ago, and at the time he went to work for one of the big banks. Well, of course there was an employment contract, and yes, there was a non-compete. And years later, I mean, he thought he was going to be there his whole career. What did we know? We were in our 20s. Well, he got headhunted by another firm, offered an amazing opportunity, and had to turn it down because he forgot that he had signed a non-competition agreement way back when. Don't know if he read it, certainly didn't understand it, and he was not allowed to accept a similar role in the same field within 200 miles and 2 years of him leaving his current company. So he had to turn down that amazing job offer. Like, that is
Yeah.
unfortunate. But how many people, yeah, don't know, don't understand, and go ahead and sign things without knowing? Just another example, I've met a ton of folks who said, well, no, I'm not really an employee, I'm a contractor. I'm like, why do you say that? Well, because my employer told me so. Well, first of all, you just called them your employer. Second of all,
Hmm.
just because they say you're a contractor and independent doesn't really mean you are. Yeah, it might let them off the hook from taking deductions, government deductions off your salary, and you have to report those come tax time. But beyond that, it could mean you are still entitled to overtime pay. You are still entitled to be paid on statutory holidays. There's a whole long list of criteria that determines, are you truly an independent contractor, or no, are you an employee?
Ah, wow. That's stuff that you do not think about for sure. The
Of course
typical
not.
person. I do remember something about a retainer, not a retainer, but whatever that clause was, because I remember back in the day when I was working for a janitor company,
Hmm.
and one of the salespersons people wanted to take on another job that was going to give him a lot more money, and his wife was pregnant. And when he went in to resign, they told him, uh, don't forget, you signed this. And I mean, it was sad. It was really
Well, but the
sad.
other reality is sometimes those contracts are completely legitimate, and sometimes they might be legit, but don't necessarily hold water. Because I had that happen when, again, I was in my early 20s and I was in a advertising career at the time and wanted to switch agencies. I'd been headhunted, offered an amazing job, went to resign, and they said, no, 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 you signed this. I consulted, I paid several $100s an hour. I wished I'd known about Legal Shield back then. Paid several $100s, and it did not hold water because I was not qualified to do anything else. Had I been qualified to do something else, sure, I could have gone and got a different job doing something entirely different. But because I wasn't qualified to do anything else, they could not prevent me from
Ah,
earning an income. So there's all kinds of little caveats. Just because somebody says, I mean, stores, retail are notorious. Well, that's our policy. Well, just because it's your policy doesn't mean it's legal or ethical.
yeah, there you go.
And sometimes having a lawyer in your back pocket can just change the tune of a conversation. We're not just protecting people, we are empowering them, people and small businesses. I mean, I had a young lady, one of my very first members, unfortunately got diagnosed with some bizarre illness, was prescribed prescription medication that worked, thankfully, but it was crazy expensive, like most prescription medicine. She sent the receipt into her benefits company, and they said, no, we're not going to pay for this. So she reached out and said, well, is there a generic equivalent? Did I fill out the form wrong? Like, why? Oh, you're too young to have the disease. Well, her first response was, yes, shock. Her second response was, hallelujah, maybe my doctor made a mistake and I don't have this disease. So she went and got another opinion. In fact, two, took all of the test results, the notices from the doctor, sent them all in because, yes, she had the disease. This was the only medication at the time. And they said the same thing, you're too young. Well, medical science says otherwise. Soon as she got the law firm involved, money showed up.
Mm,
Totally changed the, and it went from, no, Julie, we're not paying this because you're too young, to, oh, sorry, Mrs. Smith, that was our error. How can we
mm,
help? Like, complete, it shouldn't be that way, but it is. Heck, even the wealthy few can have challenges because if you
mm-hmm.
don't know your rights, or don't know how to stick up for them, you might as well not have any. One of our very own vice presidents lives in Florida on an island. This is a year and a half. Anyway, Hurricane Ian was barreling right for his home. He was in Texas scheduled to give a speech. And everybody kept saying, you don't have to do this. You sure you want to do it? He said, hey, I've got all the insurance for whatever could possibly happen. I've moved my family to safety. They're in a whole other state. And me staring at a satellite image is not going to change the hurricane or the outcome. I might as well do my job, take my mind off it. He
Mm-hmm.
went ahead. So did Hurricane Ian. The island was pretty much devastated. Him and his
Mm,
neighbors, let's just say, they were in a hotel for a long time. They couldn't even get there to see what the damage was. And the insurance companies weren't doing what they could do or should do. So he called the law firm. They looked at his policy, says, yes, you are right. They should be doing this, this, and this. Let us write a letter on your behalf. In less than 24 hours, they had couriered money to him.
mm.
And it wasn't about the money. The man, like, didn't need the money. It was the principle. He had insurance for a reason,
Yeah, yes,
right?
absolutely. Now, it's interesting, Cheryl, that you have talked about several different scenarios of where this having legal support, a legal team behind you, is going to be beneficial. I mean, all different ages, all different scenarios. But what does it
Absolutely.
look like to have this system that you're talking about, this group of lawyers to back you up? Tell me a little bit about Legal Shield. Tell us.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because I'm sure there's some people out there thinking like I did when I first heard about it. How good could these lawyers be? I mean, a family is $30 a month in the States or 33 in Canada. I'm rounding it off a bit. You know, how great could they be for $30 a month? Well, the reason it works is we've adopted a cost sharing model. We, like I had something to do with it. The company's 52 years old. But anyway, um, it's a cost sharing model. So very similar to AAA or CAA for auto services. We've got roughly 4.5 million members, all paying a small monthly membership fee. And part of that money gets set aside to put our law firms on retainer. We've got at least one law firm in every state or province. So they are familiar with your particular rules and regulations, right? Because I mean, it
Cool.
varies and there's a lot of them and they
Yes.
change constantly. So it's important to keep up to date. So that's how we make it affordable. The other way is they've chosen to market this system through network marketing, which is word of mouth, which is partly why I'm here today. How you and I met was through networking, and that's
Right.
how I do most of my business. It's word of mouth because there is so much in this service. We couldn't possibly fit it on a billboard. And to say you can hire a lawyer for $30 a month, nobody's going to believe that. We'd have So yeah, it just wouldn't work. Heck, we'd need multiple full pages in a newspaper to advertise the traditional way. Not to mention traditional advertising is crazy expensive, you know, and there's just no heart in it. I mean, we are, as associates, we are passionate because we've used it. It's helped us. I've had a friend recover an $18,000 settlement when she was wrongfully dismissed by her job. I have had several friends who've tried out the traffic ticket assistance. I have not, thankfully, but I've had several other friends who have. And what it did, it saved them the points on their license, which meant their insurance didn't go through the roof. I mean,
Ah,
you know, some of
wow.
the examples I've given have been quite traumatic and big, but you can use lawyers for trivial little things. You know, a friend of mine was shopping for a wedding dress, not a wedding dress, a dress for a wedding. She was attending, she wasn't the bride. It was on a 50% off rack. Well, she got to the cashier. They said, nope, this has been prior reduced. Nowhere did it say it had been prior reduced. Nowhere did it say on the sign that prior reduced wasn't included. So she asked to speak to the manager. While we were waiting for the manager, she tapped her app, got on the phone with the law firm, said, here's what's going on. Okay, we'll have a lawyer call you back within 8 business hours. The manager came, and the manager must have talked to their legal department because they said, yes, we unfortunately have to honor this. So she got her dress.
Mm,
The lawyers called her back. She said, no, it's all been solved. They said, yeah, good thing, because they absolutely had to give you that price.
mm,
Otherwise, that's false advertising. So
wow.
super cool. We've got an app. We tap the app, we can contact the law firm, either phone them or submit it in writing. We've got a website. We can phone them the old fashioned way during business hours. Outside of business hours, we've actually got 24/7 emergency service. So we talk about the wealthy few. Well, I don't care how big your retainer is. If your attorney is not a close relative, you are not talking to them Christmas morning or Easter Sunday at midnight. And I know folks that have done both with our service.
Yeah.
What a huge peace of mind
Wow.
that is. If Children and Family Services or Children's Protective Services, Children's Welfare, whatever it's called in your area, if they show up at your doorstep Christmas Day to try to take your kids, what are you supposed to do? Who the heck are you going to call?
Exactly. I
And
know
even if you
that's
have an attorney in the family, if it's a traffic attorney, they're not helping you with Child and Protective Services. I mean, talk about traffic attorneys. If any of you have not seen the late 80s movie My Cousin Vinny, it is hilarious and a perfect example of even why having a lawyer in the family might not work if they're not in the area of law that you need the expertise in,
very
right? I
good.
mean, we're not
Yeah.
going to we're not going to we're not going to see a heart doctor if we have a foot problem. Well,
Right.
don't ask tax questions if your brother is a divorce attorney. Don't be going to your sister who's a traffic attorney if you're trying to get a divorce. They can maybe help to some degree, but
Mm-hmm.
chances are what they're going to do is introduce you to another attorney with that area of expertise. And if you
Yeah.
can't afford it or just don't want to pay that high hourly rate, Legal Shield is an amazing, affordable option. I've got another friend that says, hey, I would not have any custody of my children had it not been for Legal Shield because I would have run out of money before I ran out of fight,
Mm.
which is wrong,
Wow.
but often how the legal system works.
Yeah.
The person
Yes.
with the most money is the
Mm-hmm.
last one standing. And that
Yeah.
is just wrong, especially if we're talking children. I mean, that is just not how anything should be decided.
Yeah. I know. I know. As an educator, I've heard a lot of stories about children and families and divorce disputes and all that stuff. Lots of money. um
Absolutely. And
and
not, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that lawyers aren't worth it.
oh,
Attorneys, absolute. I
absolutely.
mean, they've spent a fortune on schooling. They have highly specialized, they are worth it. It's not that. It's how they choose to bring it to the marketplace, how they choose to charge for that service. We've just found another way. We're adopting this crowd sharing model, as many other industries are. And at the same time, not only making it way more affordable, but easier and simpler. Because now you don't have to stress and guess about who do I call? Yeah,
Yeah.
you can Google it or open the yellow pages, but how do you know who's good, bad, and ugly? Because like any industry, there's definitely good and bad for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds very intriguing and interesting. And I will say that this isn't the first time I've heard about Legal Shield, but this is the
Good.
first time I've had it explained to me so carefully and energetically,
Well,
and with
thank
so,
you. I take that as a compliment.
I
I
know,
appreciate that.
and so many different examples where you see that it can be applicable in so, I mean, where else can you get all of that support in one place? Even having an app, I mean, that's kind of interesting too. So,
Absolutely. You know
before
what?
we,
And everything I've mentioned, all included in our low monthly membership fee, other than the one gentleman who had to incorporate. The
right,
things that aren't included are, and I've only touched on them. The things that aren't included is a way shorter list. It'd be criminal charges, driving under the influence, nasty custodies and divorces, either personal or corporate. The things that would be thousands and thousands of dollars. That's going to be extra. You get a 25% discount.
hmm,
When you're talking legal fees, that's massive.
wow, that is interesting, very interesting.
And that
Well,
was the difference between my friend getting custody and not.
yeah, yeah, wow. So, um, as we end our little discussion here on being proactive with your legal services, which to me, that in itself is is a no-brainer, because in everything in life, the more you can be proactive, the less you're going to suffer on the other end. So,
Absolutely.
and
And
you don't think about it legally.
nope,
Most people
nope, not
don't.
at all. And when I was a career coach working with folks that decided to become entrepreneurs or were thinking about it, I said constantly, do what you do best, rely on pros for the rest. If you're a carpenter, you're probably great at woodworking. Stick to that. If you're a house cleaner, you're probably great at that. Stick to that. Hire or collaborate, barter, whatever you need to do, but rely on pros. You need a good lawyer or legal service. You need a good accountant or professional tax preparer versed in your field, because you will miss, speaking from experience, you will miss tax write offs that you don't even know exist. And they're
Hmm.
there to help you, but never ever has our government, and I'm pretty sure your government, ever done an assessment on a tax return and said, oops, you missed some stuff, here's more money. No, never. They put them in place to help us, but they don't remind us they're there because they don't actually want us to use them, because it's money out of their pocket, right?
Yes. Yep.
So scary. You need a good business coach. You need someone to help you balance work and life, because it is way too easy as an entrepreneur, especially a solopreneur, to become a workaholic. And I know
Oh,
you've
yeah.
talked about that, right?
Yeah.
How do you remain grounded and not get sucked up, right? You can totally burn yourself out easily. Folks who are truly self-employed are going to work harder than they ever did for somebody else. Hopefully, the difference is they enjoy it more.
Yeah.
That's the difference. Now, if you're thinking of getting into business and you think, well, because I never want to ask a boss for time off and I want to be able to take endless vacation, whoop, nix that idea, because that ain't happening. It does not work that way. You will run out of money.
Yeah.
You will work harder than you ever did for somebody else until you get to the point of having systems and leveraging. And that takes a bit,
Right. Right.
for
Eh,
sure. But
Yeah.
yes, rely on pros, a good business coach, a good financial advisor. You need all these people, life coach even, to help keep you grounded and balance everything. So
Yes. Well,
remember that.
I love that. And I agree with that. I really
Yeah.
do, because it was a long time that I relied on the power of me. And wow, you know,
Well, we were
nobody,
taught
we were taught, be
if
work hard, be strong, stand,
it's
give
going
it
to
your
be, it's up
best,
to me,
all
right?
that stuff,
All those. Yep.
which is true to a degree.
Yes.
But if everyone else was interested in your best interest, it might be okay. But they're not. The people you work for,
Right.
even your own family members and stuff, everybody's in it for themselves, for the most part.
Mhm.
And you need to protect yourself.
Absolutely. And desperate times can create desperate people who will do desperate things. And back to the conversation about wills, death and money will bring out personalities in people that you didn't know existed. It'll bring out relatives you didn't know existed, which is a whole other conversation. But you know what? Those crazy ideas for movies are not so crazy. They came from real life in most cases. That kind
Mhm.
of stuff can happen,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So
Yes.
it is really important to be protected and empowered. And if, I've also heard it said the ostrich can stick its head in the sand, but the lion's lunch plans don't change.
Yeah. Oh, that's a funny one. Uh,
Ignoring it will not make it go away.
oh,
And yeah, anything to
yes.
do with the government. So, if we're talking about business or even wills and estates, they don't do anything based on logic, and they do not accept the excuse that I didn't know.
Right.
It does not matter.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, why didn't you tell us, Cheryl, how they can get in touch with you to be able to get, and I'm going to also put the links down below and in my email so that people can get in touch with you to get a real heart-to-heart chat about how this would work for them personally.
Absolutely. Well, probably the easiest way would be on LinkedIn.
Okay.
There's not too many Cheryl Scotts, Cheryl with an S, and I
Right.
don't think there's any others in Ontario, Canada. So I'm pretty easy to find on LinkedIn. I'm
Well, there
there
you go.
all the time. If you want to find me on Facebook, you are going to have to use, and I will change my name ever so briefly, because I have my maiden name on there, because when I joined Facebook, it was to find classmates, which of course didn't know me by my
Ah,
married
there
name.
you
So I'm
go.
Heinz Scott on Facebook.
Well, I noticed because I tried to tag you in a couple of things that I had said about our session today, and I'm like, she's not there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's all right.
Well, the other reality is I don't think any other Cheryl Hines Scotts, but there's a ton of Cheryl Scotts. So,
Yeah, yeah.
and
There
thankfully
were,
all good people. So I'm never
yeah,
confused with criminals, which is lovely.
yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for
This
sharing.
has been been such a pleasure.
It
Thank
has
you.
been. It has been. And it's in my brain, there's just been so many things mulling around that I know I'm going to be getting in contact with you so that we can talk
Excellent.
and see what we need to do to get our wills and all that stuff up and running. Um,
Absolutely. And I hope we can do this again because the other reality is we have a second service called ID Shield that's identity theft protection. Some would say equally or, in fact, more important with all the data breaches out there, but we don't have time to talk about that today because that's a whole other conversation. So hopefully we can do this
right.
again.
Yes, absolutely. We can
Yes,
do this again. So that's something that we'll get set up. And maybe within the next few months, we will have another chat with Cheryl.
because I
So,
love chatting with you. So this is amazing. Thank you so, so much. I really appreciate being able to reach your audience and getting
yes.
introduced to your community.
Yes, well, thank you very much. And I don't see any comments on here, but if anyone's watching the replay, feel free to post questions and we will definitely get back with you. Post your scenarios um, where you agree, yes, we need to protect ourselves legally in certain situations. Well, in every situation, to be honest, we need to be
In
protected.
this day and age, yes.
Yes, yes, we
Yeah,
do.
unfortunately. The world's
All
just getting
right.
more complicated.
Yeah,
Pros
I
and cons to
agree.
everything, though.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All righty. Well, thanks again, Cheryl, and those of you who are watching, and we will talk to you later. Bye bye.
Have an amazing day. Take
You
care.
too.